evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and tonight I'm talking to author Celice Maree, who's written a book of incredible courage, incredible experience, and a memoir of true experiences called Misconceptions of Forgiveness. Good evening, Celice. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Brad. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd ask you, please, if you could, in your words, tell everyone watching, what is Misconceptions of Forgiveness all about? What are they going to expect when they get this book?
This, for me, is very personal, purely raw feelings of 9 years of my life living in Dubai in the Middle East, of being just in two relationships. I was beaten, strangled, had broken glass held up to my neck, dragged by the hair, mentally abused. And some people say, you know, it's awful to be beaten, but bruises on your body heal. But when another person, one man was beating me, and then I finally found the courage to leave him after dealing with so much, him going to jail, so many things. And then a second man comes along who knew everything that the first man did to me, everything in detail, promised me he would never do anything like that, sat down understandingly, talking to me, showing me empathy and care. And then he was narcissistically wielding me and twisting the knife in, and using me, and cheating, lying, manipulating, turning everything back on me, when all I'm believing was he loves me and he wants to spend a life with me. All the while I'm flying for an airline in the Middle East, trying to create a life for myself. Just sort of, it's pretty much just paving the way as what happened to me throughout my whole 30s. This part of me that feels like I wasted my 30s on two men. But then at the end of the day, I went through terrible, terrible things, almost killed in a car accident as well. Terrible things. But if I hadn't endured those terrible, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking situations, then I would never have been in the situation now. I've written it all about it to help other women who feel that they don't have a voice to be able to speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a beautiful book. It is raw. It is honest. It's a personal story. So, I mean, it's a survival story. You survive these relationships, really. I mean, you feel, but without delving into too much of all that, was it hard to get through that and then come out the other end, right? Like, be able to tell this story and go back into it? So you've come out of it, survived it, and then you want to go write it. What was that like?
When I was living it, it was just like day to day, just deal with it, because we were living a life where every few days I would pack my suitcase and then be in another city. Wow. So I was able to get away from it, but then when I come back, I was really, living in it. And then when I was able to finally get free of both of them, writing it down wasn't hard at all. Every word, one night, it was actually, I wrote the whole book in 30 days, 410 pages in 30 days.
Wow.
And it was actually the 29th of June last year. I was meditating at night, and my friends had said to me for so many years, Celice, why don't you write a book about what's happened? You're so strong, and you're so still positive and such a kind person after everything that's happened. You could really help someone. So I was meditating. It was as if someone above was telling me it's now time. We were in lockdown. I wasn't flying. It was like I now had the time and the patience to sit down and take myself back. I'd dealt with it. I've put it to bed. I'd buried it as part of my life, but in the past, and I'd moved forward. And as I finished meditating, I picked up my phone, and in my phone, in the notes, I wrote the introduction. And then the next, I opened up the laptop, and it just started to flow. I couldn't stop. I would sometimes between 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and it would just keep coming out and coming out and coming out. It was like it was finally time just to release it, and then just to be free of it. Yeah.
Wow. Well done. And in part of that reverie of reflection, did you learn something? Did you find something in there that that made sense of it all, the reason for it happening? Was there anything you understood more?
Well, I always used to think to myself, why am I treated this way? Why am I being treated so unkind when I'm so good to people? Like when I'm so good, when someone's still so terrible to me, I'm such a kind person and I never give up hope and I never stop trying. But then I also realized that maybe the reason this all happened was to either, one, to help other women, or two, they didn't come into my life for me. I ended up having to come into their life for them. So maybe I wanted to be there for them, to help them realize something, you know, maybe, you know, for me,
what?
I got so lost for so long. One thing that I realized for myself is that even though terrible things have happened, I've never, ever changed. My heart is still as big as ever. I'm still as kind as ever. I would give my last $10 on the street to help them if I had to, and I've done it before, you know. And I guess I just learned my own personal strength. And one good thing about it was the understanding of, you know, like where you with your family, where you grow up with your family. I've now got such a more raw, understanding, patient, caring side towards my family that I never had before. So, you know, it's this terrible things happened, but they actually brought my mum and I so close together now, which we never used to be. So it's actually terrible things happened to make me realize that I love my mum more than anything, that she's my best friend. And honestly, at the end of the day, even if terrible things happen between you and your parents, your mothers will be there through thick and through fire, through droughts, through hurricanes, to protect.
No, that's good. And was this the first book you sat down to write? Was there any, if you've always wanted to write something, was writing something you wanted to do but never did? Or
I always have. For me, when I was 26, 27, I thought, you know what, I haven't come from the most positive upbringing with a lot of care and a lot of love. So I thought I would love to write about that, and I tried to, but I couldn't. It just wasn't in here yet. And I've actually still got the first few 20 odd pages still on my old laptop. And but this was the first book I'd written. I'm the sort of person, give me a book at 9 a.m. in the morning. If it's 400 or 500 pages, I will finish the whole thing by 7. Read from cover to cover nonstop.
Wow.
And love books, how they transport people to another world. For those hours when you're reading that book, you forget everything. You're just fixed in the story, in between the front cover and the back cover.
Wow.
So for me, books have always been something that I've done to take me away from the world that I was in. So for me to be able to write it, it wasn't hard. It was the first book. And honestly, it was just the joy I felt writing. It just filled my heart. Even though I sat writing with tears streaming down onto the laptop, you know, something very hard.
I was going to say the subject matter isn't happy. Some of it. I mean, there's some real stuff in there that you are raw about the relationship, the effects of the relationship, the hurt that you've suffered. So I can't imagine writing that would be the enjoyment, but I understand the process of writing itself is elating. So
it was very easy to write, but it was like I was re-digging up feelings that I had buried, and I was re-digging up hurt and pain that I had pushed aside that I didn't want to feel again. It was like I would read, and then each time I would write, then I would go back and reread the chapters I'd written the days before, then re-edit and re-add more to make everything more explicit. I'd just get the story to go back and add more to it. And I think I've relived this story now in the last year, maybe 10 times. And
are you excited or scared about what's going to come back from a reader? Like what do you hope they get out of it, the reader, when they get your story?
Actually, you know what, I'm so excited because there's a few different Facebook pages that I'm on with the airline that I worked for, and I've just put it up saying, look guys, there is life after flying. You know what? If we don't, you don't ever fly again. Look what's happened to me. You know, I'm now a published author. You know, I'm going to be writing 3 books. I've also opened up my own business. There's things you can do. You just have to believe. So for me, when I put that up, I've had hundreds and hundreds of people write comments saying you're so inspirational, so amazing. Now everyone's just starting to pre-order it. So I couldn't be happy. And I haven't done this to big note myself at all. I'm so humble. I would happily sit in the corner and never be noticed.
No, well, that's right.
And that's why I put my surname down. I've put my middle name because I'm not really wanting to put my head up and go, I'm here. It's not about me. This is one story that can help anyone out there who feels so lost and they just have no idea where their path is taking them, that they can make a difference by themselves to make it a better life for themselves.
Yeah, and it's the way you've written it too. You've not written it in a way that's judgmental or vindictive or spiteful of the situation. It's practical. It's a realism, and it's an insight into what relationship dynamics can be and should be and shouldn't be. So you've actually been, you know, fairly strong in your objectivity as well, and that's a brave thing, because it is hard, as you say, when you're writing something so personal, to get immersed in the anger and the spite and the irrational elements of the situation. But you've seen things very well.
I wanted to, as I was writing it, I wanted to keep going along, and to reiterate to the readers all the time, this isn't a hate book. This isn't you did this to me, you did this to me, because at any time I could have walked away. And
that's right.
I was with one for 5 years. I was with another one for 3 years. It was my own choice to stay. I could have walked away at any time. But
that's right. You weren't a victim, and that's the important part. And that's why you didn't write it as a victim. You wrote it as a woman in a situation that's practicable. You tried to make love happen. It wasn't working, and that's the function of any relationship. You have to walk away eventually. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you did experience some unfortunate elements that the men, and I think that was explained in the way of their own weakness. I don't think it was a matter of your, as you say, of your faults. You know, it was really, there was elements in that relationship that weren't functional for them as well. But yeah, you've written a wonderful book. Everybody watching, by the way, the book is called Misconceptions of Forgiveness, and it's by Celice Maree. And it's a beautiful book. It's a real book. It is emotional, so if you're going to read it, be prepared for being indulged in quite a story of experience of what Celice Maree went through, and as she built her life as a young woman. But so what's happening with the next book? So are we extending this story? Is there more for the fans to follow? What's happening for you?
Written the second book. I wrote the second book in September last year. Yep. After I made contact with you, and the second book is actually going to be the prequel, which will take from the age of 20 right up until the age of 32, when I moved to the Middle East, to Dubai, to live, to start work there and change my life, and then all this happened. So the second book is when I leave Perth and I move to Queensland. And there's obviously another man, another romance there, and that's the first love of my life, and things happen there as well. And then from him, I moved to Europe, and that's when I realized, you know what, the whole of Australia is too small for me. I have to see the rest of the world. But it's also a girl in her 20s who's just trying to find herself. She feels very lost. She doesn't know where she fits in, who she fits in with.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, she never felt like she fit in with her family, which is why she left. And then when she gets to the Gold Coast, she gets caught up with drugs and partying and, you know, the wrong crowd. You know, it's pretty much her twisting and turning through all these different weaves and webs, making mistakes but learning from them, you know, and just trying to find her own way. And then she gets to Dubai at the end of it, you know, and then all this happens. But you know, it's a life, and it's my life, and you know, if none of these things had ever happened, I wouldn't be here now, the person that I am. These people,
that is as part of it.
Situations have made me the resilient, strong that I am.
So So you're putting really your whole life story out there. I mean, that's a pretty brave thing to do. Are you ever worried that people are going to know you more than you'll ever know them? I mean, what if, future relationships or future people have a way of getting in your head that's not fair to you because you've given so much of yourself?
All right.
No, it's a fair call. I mean, you put the memoirs out there.
Yeah, it's true. Well, for me, it's not about people needing to know me, because I've always been. I will talk about myself to anybody. You know how some people, the second guy in my first book, the Egyptian, don't tell them the business, don't tell them anything that's going on. I'm like, yeah, but this is who I am. This is my personality. Sure. I was a hairdresser for many years, and hairdressers speak to everyone about everything. I am. Yeah. And that used to annoy him. And for me, it's not about putting my life out there. It's more about the people, not even judging, but making up assumptions without knowing the person. You know what? How about you can meet me, and then once you meet me, then you can go, oh yeah, she shouldn't have done this or she shouldn't have done that. I mean, people are going to talk anyway, even though
absolutely
they don't know me, they still talk. But it's more, don't assume, don't judge a book by its cover, really.
Absolutely. Unless it's misconceptions of forgiveness.
Yeah, right. I know. Well,
so what do you hope readers are going to get out of this? Like, I mean, obviously your message is, for women, about being stronger, about being, realistic in their relationships. But what do you really hope out of the whole consensus? I mean, for people to read this book, what do you want them to gain?
That they find a way to believe in themselves. I don't want anyone to compare their story or their life to mine, because everyone's is different. But it's about them thinking, you know what, here's one person who went through something similar to me, and somehow she was able to pull herself out. Why can't I? Yeah, I do deserve better. You know what, there was for so long I was worried, and I held on because I didn't want to be alone. I don't have anyone, and I'm actually happier than I've ever been in my life. Yes, it took a while to get used to being on my own, but you know what, at the end of the day, your own self-respect and your self-care is more important, because it gets to some point where someone just keeps dragging you down and degrading you to the point where you feel that you have nothing left to give, and you don't feel that you're good enough. And no one ever, just doesn't matter what the circumstances are, no one ever get to that situation.
It's strange how easily sometimes we can give our power up and be submissive to people that really don't deserve it or don't have that respect for us. And again, like the domestic violence and abuse and mental and physical abuse is so high in some of the cultures today. And like I say, it's a very good book for the realization that situation is not acceptable. And I think a lot of people, women as well, need to understand that they can have choices and help and walk away. Yeah, and you've done it very well. You've written a very good book, Celice. Well done. So, but everybody watching as well, thank you for watching, but also grab a copy of this book, Misconceptions of Forgiveness. It's available online, and it's available in every bookshop. And we do ask you to support local bookshops, so they do need our business. But yeah, Celice, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm looking forward to the next books and next time we talk.
Thank you so much.